Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and honestly deeply polarizing political landscapes we've seen in recent memory. We're looking at the first 100 days of Prime Minister Balen Shah's administration in Nepal. Just imagine a government moving so unbelievably fast that it literally fixes your everyday problems overnight, but it might be bending or even breaking the law to do it. That's exactly the reality we're unpacking today. What we're seeing is a government acting like it's on a high-speed expressway, constantly balancing record-breaking public service delivery against some really severe accusations of authoritarianism. It is a classic high-stakes battle between getting things done fast and respecting democratic institutions. Let's get into it.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The rise of PM Balen Shah. 2. Fast-tracking public services. 3. The anti-corruption purge. 4. Bypassing the democratic process. And 5. We'll weigh performance versus process.
Section 1. The rise of PM Balen Shah, from rapper to prime minister.
Okay, just look at how insanely compressed this timeline is. We have a former rapper and structural engineer who completely disrupts the status quo in 2022 by getting elected as the independent mayor of Kathmandu. Fast forward a bit, and following the massive Gen Z anti-corruption protests in 2025, he formally joins the Rashtriya Swatantra Party, or RSP. By late 2025, entirely riding this huge wave of anti-establishment sentiment, the RSP secures a massive two-thirds parliamentary majority, winning 182 out of 275 seats. And by March 27, 2026, he's sworn in as prime minister. It's a massive, truly unprecedented generational transition in Nepalese politics.
Section 2. Fast-tracking public services, the 100-point agenda. So the government basically decided to grade its own homework for its first 100 days. Right out of the gate, they established this 100-point governance reform agenda and designated their first year as a foundation year. And according to them, the results are huge. They claim 70% of these tasks are fully complete, 17% are over 80% complete, and 13% are over 60% complete. To force these kinds of results, they assigned incredibly strict timelines and performance indicators to every single ministry. When you aggregate all those figures, the administration proudly gave itself an overall success score of 87.2% for its first 100 days. Pretty impressive, right? But, we have to ask, is that just a number on paper? What does that actually look like for an everyday citizen? Well, it looks like over 3 million driving licenses printed. If you've ever had to wait in a seemingly endless government line, you know exactly how massive a 2.9 million person backlog is. Previous governments literally called clearing it impossible. But this administration wiped the whole thing out in just 100 days. And the kicker? Citizens noted it happened without them having to pay a single bribe. This expressway model extended straight into digital infrastructure, too. Over 206,000 passports were rapidly dispatched directly to district administration offices via the Postal Service. The government aggressively pushed digital governments across the board. Now, companies can download their permanent account number, or PAN certificates, entirely online. They even rolled out a government-integrated office management system that lets citizens track their official files in real time. Section 3. The Anti-Corruption Purge, Arrests and Bureaucratic Reset. The scope of what they did next is just breathtaking. They formed a brand new Asset Investigation Commission looking into officials spanning a 20-year period. They've taken action against 101 individuals for money laundering, claiming 118 billion rupees in damages. And they aren't just going after low-level offenders here. They ordered the immediate arrest of a former Prime Minister, KP Oli, and former Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak over the 2025 protest violence, alongside some really top-tier business tycoons. Down on the ground level, 495 so-called middlemen were brought under control by police. And inside the government itself, they dismissed over 1,500 political appointees and lowered the bureaucratic retirement age to 55 just to downsize the civil service. Now, as you might expect, public opinion on these purges is fiercely divided. Supporters absolutely love it. They see this as undeniable proof that Balen Shah is serious about uprooting impunity and cleaning up deeply entrenched cronyism. To them, it's about resetting the bureaucracy to make way for younger, digitally savvy civil servants. But critics, they see it very differently. They argue these arrests are basically political vendettas completely lacking in due process. They're warning that arbitrarily detaining people and firing thousands is causing a massive leadership vacuum and frankly demoralizing the honest bureaucrats left behind. Section 4.
Bypassing democratic process, speed versus due process.
This brings us to the core of the pushback against the Balen administration, the very loud accusation that all this unprecedented speed is coming at the direct cost of democratic norms. The opposition UML party has laid out some pretty severe allegations. They're claiming the Prime Minister's office in Singapore is engaging in arbitrary, unconstitutional rule. They argue the government is heavily centralizing executive power, weakening federalism, initiating what they refer to as bulldozer terror against vulnerable populations, and committing needless foreign policy blunders. So let's break down a few of these specific controversies.
First up is the sweeping demolition drive of settlements along the riverbanks. The administration literally sent in security forces to evict hundreds of thousands of landless Nepalis. Supporters defend this move, arguing it was a tough but absolutely necessary step to separate fake squatters who are supposedly planted there by past political parties, just to be used as vote banks. Critics, however, strongly condemn it. They state that bulldozing homes on short notice without proper verification or offering alternative housing is a blatant violation of human rights. Next is the administration's choice to rule by ordinance. Remember, they hold a near two-thirds majority, which is enough to pass almost any law through standard channels. Yet, the government bypassed Parliament entirely to push through sweeping reforms, including making controversial changes to the voting rules in the Constitutional Council. Supporters argue the traditional parliamentary process is just way too slow to deliver the rapid anti-corruption reforms the public demanded. Critics counter that this centralizes executive power and grants the Prime Minister undemocratic authority, basically behaving no differently than the previous regimes they campaigned against.
Then there is the passport procurement controversy. The Prime Minister's office actually detained officials from an independent constitutional watchdog, the CIAA, at Singapore for 9 hours. They were pressuring them to proceed against German passport companies over contract irregularities. I mean, detaining officials from an independent watchdog for 9 hours is virtually unheard of. Supporters look at this and see a crusader cleaning up corrupt, infiltrated agencies. Critics look at the exact same event and see a terrifying breach of constitutional norms and a massive failure of diplomatic conduct with a key development partner like Germany. And that leads us perfectly into diplomacy. PM Shah has famously refused to meet one-on-one with foreign emissaries, and that's been combined with some pretty off-the-cuff remarks regarding borders. His base loves this. They argue it shows Nepal has its own identity, isn't just a pushover buffer states, and that meeting ambassadors collectively promotes absolute transparency. Critics, on the other hand, label the whole thing a fiasco. They argue it's needlessly aggressive and is isolating Nepal by alienating major global partners like India, China, and the US.
Section 5. Performance versus process. The democratic dilemma.
Ultimately, the public is desperate for quick, bribe-free services. But are those deliverables actually sustainable without democratic due process? An investigation by Kantipur Media directly challenged the government's 87% success claim that we talked about earlier, finding that only 38 of the 100 commitments were truly honored. As a Kathmandu Post editorial highlighted, the real danger of an expressway government is that it only takes one missed turn to cause a massive accident. Sustainable governance requires building solid, lasting institutions, not just executing hasty decisions that might end up being reversed later. And so, we are left to ponder a really crucial question. Is rapid performance worth bypassing the democratic process? On one hand, millions of people are finally getting the state services they were promised, completely free of corruption. But on the other hand, the guardrails of the Constitution are seemingly being tested on a daily basis. Does the end justify the means on Balen Sarkar's expressway? It's a fascinating dilemma, and definitely something to keep a close eye on as this administration moves past its first 100 days. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go explore the source material for yourself.